Never waste your breath to defend yourself against a manipulative man. He already knows what he did. He knows exactly why you are upset, and he knows exactly what he said. He remembers the lie, the disrespect, the little switch in his behavior. He is not confused. He is not struggling to understand your point. He just wants you stuck explaining it. That is the game. The longer he keeps you talking, the longer he avoids answering for himself. So now you are explaining your tone. You are explaining why you reacted. You are explaining what you meant. You are explaining something this man understood the first damn time. Meanwhile, notice what he is not doing. He is not taking responsibility. That is why arguments with a manipulative man feel like you are running in circles. You bring up one thing he did, and somehow 10 minutes later you are defending your entire personality. Now he is talking about your attitude. Now he is talking about something you did 6 months ago. Now he is telling you that you always overreact. Girl, look at what just happened. You started the conversation asking why he lied, but now you are trying to prove you are not crazy. That is not an accident. That is how he moves the attention away from his behavior and puts the spotlight on your reaction. And some men are damn good at this. They know exactly which buttons to push because they have been studying you. They know you care about being fair. They know you do not want to be misunderstood. They know you hate being called dramatic, so they use that against you. Then he tells you you're twisting everything, so you start explaining yourself even more. Next, he claims this is why he can't talk to you, and suddenly you're defending yourself again. Then he tells you this is why he can't talk to you, and suddenly your reaction becomes the whole issue. Meanwhile, that fool is sitting there acting like he just won something. He did not win the argument. He just succeeded in getting you away from the original problem. Stop thinking every disagreement needs another explanation. Sometimes he understood you perfectly. He just doesn't like what the truth would force him to admit. A decent man can hear something uncomfortable and still stay in the conversation. He can say, I do not like hearing this, but I understand why you feel that way. A manipulative man turns every uncomfortable truth because accountability feels like an attack to a man who survives by avoiding it. That is why he gets angry when you catch him and suddenly turns cold. The moment you reject his disrespect, he accuses you of disrespecting him. Funny how that works. He can lie to your face, disappear, flirt with another woman, and act shady. But the second you ask a direct question, now he wants to talk about respect. Please, that is not respect. That is control. He wants the freedom to do whatever he wants and still control how you respond to it. He wants to hurt you and then tell you how much pain you are allowed to show. He wants to betray your trust and then decide how quickly you should move on. And when you refuse, suddenly you are the problem. Do not fall for that. A manipulative man needs you doubting yourself because a woman who trusts herself is hard to control. If you know what you saw, he cannot rewrite it. If you trust what you felt, he cannot convince you that your instincts are broken, so he works on that first. He makes you question your memory. He makes you question your standards. He makes you question whether you are being too sensitive. Then one day, you are asking him if you are allowed to be hurt by something he clearly did. That is when you need to wake up. You should never need permission from the person who hurt you to acknowledge that you were hurt. And stop thinking you can love him into honesty. You cannot. You cannot explain a grown man into having character. You cannot communicate so perfectly that a manipulator suddenly becomes accountable. If he is committed to misunderstanding you, every explanation becomes more material for him to twist. So quit feeding the argument. You said what you said. He heard you. You do not need another 2-hour conversation. You do not need another essay. You do not need to prove that your pain deserves to exist. Sometimes the strongest thing a woman can say is nothing else. Because when you stop defending yourself, his little game starts falling apart. He cannot keep dragging you around the same circle when you stop running with him. And watch how uncomfortable he gets when you finally stop explaining. That silence hits different, because now he has nobody to argue with. Nobody to confuse, nobody to blame, nobody to wear down until she gives up and says, fine, maybe I was wrong. That is what he was waiting for. Not understanding. Submission. And once you see that clearly, you stop asking, how can I make him understand me? You start asking the question that actually matters. Why am I still trying to be understood by a man who benefits from misunderstanding me? That answer will tell you everything. Always remember that. And once you ask yourself that question, everything starts looking different, because now you're not studying his words anymore. You are studying the pattern, and patterns do not lie. You start noticing how every apology comes after consequences show up. You start noticing how his kindness appears whenever you are finally pulling away. You start noticing how quickly this man becomes loving when he feels his control slipping. That is not always growth. Sometimes that is panic. A manipulative man can treat you like garbage for months, then become Prince Charming overnight. Suddenly he understands your feelings. Suddenly he misses your smile. Suddenly nobody compares to you. Girl, please pay attention. Where was all that understanding when you were begging him to stop hurting you? Where was that beautiful communication when you were crying beside him? Where was that effort when he still believed you would stay? Exactly. He did not suddenly discover your value. He discovered that access to you was no longer guaranteed, and that scares a controlling man. Because he was comfortable when you kept explaining yourself. He was comfortable when you kept forgiving him. He was comfortable knowing he could push you too far, then pull you back with a few pretty words. But once you stop responding, the whole game changes. Now he cannot measure your emotions anymore. He cannot tell whether his little speech worked. He cannot throw bait into the conversation and watch you chase it. That silence takes his favorite weapon away, your reaction. That is why some manipulative men will suddenly become desperate when you finally go quiet. They call repeatedly. They send paragraphs. They start talking about memories, promises, marriage, family, everything they ignored before. And if sweetness does not work, watch how quickly the mask can switch. Now he is angry. Now you are cold. Now you never loved him. Now you are throwing everything away. See how that works? When manipulation through affection stops working, manipulation through guilt sometimes takes its place. He will remind you about everything he ever did for you. He will mention every good memory like it cancels every bad pattern. He may even tell you nobody else will tolerate you. That one is almost funny, because the man who spent months making you question your worth suddenly becomes an expert on who deserves you. Do not buy it. A healthy man does not need to destroy your confidence to keep you beside him. He does not make you scared of leaving because he knows love should be chosen freely. Manipulators need fear. Fear you will regret leaving. Fear nobody else will want you. Fear you misunderstood everything. Fear that maybe he really will change for the next woman. And that last one keeps women stuck longer than they should. You start thinking, what if I leave right before he finally becomes better? Listen, if losing you is what finally teaches him how to behave, let that lesson belong to him. You are not required to stay miserable while somebody slowly discovers basic human decency. You already explained enough. You already gave chances. You already told him what was hurting you. At some point, staying stops being patience and starts becoming permission. And I know that sounds harsh, but you cannot keep calling something a mistake when the same behavior keeps getting repeated after clear conversations. A mistake happens once. A pattern comes back because somebody keeps choosing it. That is the part women have to watch. Not the apology, the pattern. Anybody can cry when consequences arrive. Anybody can promise change when the door is closing. Anybody can behave perfectly for 3 weeks when they are scared you might really be done. Watch what happens when things become comfortable again. That tells you more. Pay attention to this. Does the respect stay? Does the honesty stay? Does the effort stay? Or does the same old clown slowly crawl back out once he feels safe again? Because temporary good behavior is not transformation. Sometimes it is just another phase of the same manipulation cycle. And eventually you have to stop asking whether he loves you. Ask yourself whether his version of love is healthy enough to live inside. Those are different questions. A man can say he loves you and still manipulate you. He can say he needs you and still drain you. He can cry over losing you and still refuse to change what made you leave. Feelings alone do not make somebody safe. Character does. Accountability does. Consistency does. So stop grading this man on what he says during emotional emergencies. Start grading him on how he treats you when he thinks you are not going anywhere. That is where the truth lives. And if the truth keeps showing you disrespect, confusion, manipulation, and exhaustion, believe what you are seeing. You do not need one final conversation. You do not need him to finally admit everything. You do not need a confession before you are allowed to walk away. Closure does not always come from the person who hurt you. Sometimes closure is realizing you have explained yourself enough. Sometimes closure is accepting that he understood you and chose himself anyway. And sometimes, the strongest ending is not another argument. It is leaving. Not to punish him. Not to make him chase you. Not to teach him some dramatic lesson. You leave because peace should not require you to abandon yourself. You leave because love should not feel like a courtroom where you are constantly proving your own sanity. And you leave because a man committed to controlling the story will never give you the ending you deserve. So give yourself one. Walk away from the circle. Let him argue with himself. And this time, do not turn around.